The following videos were developed as a community service in partnership between the Unified Government of Wyandotte County and Housing and Credit Counseling Incorporated, otherwise known as HCCI of Topeka, Kansas. A series of 6 modules were developed by HCCI in Wyandotte County to address frequent issues that arise in the residential landlord-tenant relationship. The 6 module topics include leases, non-renewals, terminations, and evictions, fair housing as it relates to tenant screening, crime-free multi-housing advanced management techniques, rental licensing and inspection, and this current video, rental applications. Information discussed in the landlord-tenant modules can be referenced in the Kansas Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, otherwise known as the KRLTA, as well as federal fair housing laws. To learn more about HCCI and HCCI services, including landlord and tenant information, publications and forms, or if you need to speak to a landlord and tenant counselor, contact us at 800-234-0217 or 785-234-0217. You can also visit our website at www.hcci-ks.org. The rental application process. A landlord can use whatever screening criteria desired, as long as it is not discriminatory and every applicant is screened in the same manner. There is no requirement that a landlord even have a formal written application process. However, the written application, to include screening process, is the key to being a successful landlord. Without it, your endeavor to be self-employed may be an exercise of futility, and you may end up feeling dissatisfied. The application process can yield a good tenant, and just as important, it can result in avoiding a nightmare of lease violation notices, complaining neighbors, damage, destruction, and loss of rental income. During the application process, a landlord should find the first applicant that meets the requirements based upon objective, written screening criteria. A landlord wants to find people who can pay the rent, will pay the rent on time, and will not cause trouble or destroy the property. Every landlord should develop an application form that not only collects the information necessary for checking the background of prospective tenants, but also makes clear any special requirements. You can find good rental applications by conducting an internet search or contact HCCI for an application. An application should be provided to each applicant over the age of 18. Applications should be filled out legibly and completely. If not, give it back to the applicant to fill in the blanks, or the application should not be considered. If for any reason an applicant needs help filling out the application, you can assist. Copies of written screening policy, occupancy policy, lease agreements, addendums, and any rules and regulations should be available for all prospective tenants to review before signing an application. For more information involving screening tenants and how it applies to fair housing, please view Module 2, Fair Housing, Screening Applicants for Tenancy. The following screening procedures are up to you, but you can include income minimums. You can determine how much a tenant or tenants combined must make in order to qualify, but 3 times the amount of the monthly rent is the most common requirement. Credit criteria, to include credit scores, collections, and judgments. Will you use credit scores to determine your approval? What about collections and judgments? Oftentimes, landlords don't necessarily care as much about negative credit as much as they care about past or current delinquencies with rent and utilities. Of course, utilities are important because if your applicants owe money, then they may not be able to get their utilities turned on. Do they have rental references? You can decide to rent to someone with no rental references, as everyone must start somewhere. However, you can also decide to ask those people with references to provide a co-signer. Past evictions. Some landlords will not rent to someone with a past eviction. Others say they won't rent to an applicant with an eviction on their record within the last 2, 5, 10 years or more. Had they filed bankruptcy? You can determine you will deny tenancy to those with a bankruptcy on their credit report, unless they show proof it has been discharged. Is there a criminal record? Once again, some landlords will never rent to someone with a criminal record. Others say people deserve a second chance. The choice is up to you. Will you allow pets? If so, will there be a weight and breed requirement? Remember, service animals are not pets, so weight and breed requirements would not apply to service animals. Were the applicants neat, clean, prompt in payment, timely in giving move-out notice, and good neighbors in their last rental? A screening policy can also include that providing false information is grounds for denial. All of these standards are acceptable. Criminal backgrounds. This is only a sample statement which can be included on an application. We perform a criminal background check. We take into consideration the type of crime and the length of time since conviction. However, violent crimes, drug-related crimes of felony status, and sexually related crimes will not be accepted. Failure to disclose a criminal record is grounds for automatic denial. A landlord is not only concerned about his property, but of course the safety of residents. For this reason, some landlords say they will never accept anyone with a criminal background. Others will allow a felony background, but with limitations. This is an area that you are going to have to carefully consider. If you will accept a felony history, what felonies will you accept? Or more importantly, which ones will you not accept? Also, will you have a time limit, such as no felonies within the last 5 years? The choices are yours to make. But even though criminals are not in a protected class, you must treat all applicants the same. An applicant may be on the edge of qualifying, but may not fully pass screening due to a lack of rental history. In this case, a landlord can decide to accept a cosigner, but also apply the same credit standards to the cosigner as well. The cosigner would then be responsible for honoring the lease agreement if the tenant fails to do so. Income verification. Listed are the most common wages landlords verify: employment history, retirement, Social Security disability, child support, and self-employment. You will have to decide what wages you will accept when determining income. For example, some landlords won't accept income from state unemployment or from temporary employment because it will not be long-term or consistent. The application fee can cover the cost of the professional screening or the administrative costs to cover any screening the landlord performs on his own time. There is no need for you to incur this cost. It is typically used to cover the charge of screening. Screening can be through a professional company that will provide a background check that can include a credit report and criminal background checks. There are no rules regarding how much you can charge for an application fee, though on average application fees range from $15 to $50, and that's per applicant. You can obtain a criminal background check from your local police department or local county court also. Sometimes it's free, and sometimes there's a small fee, but it's a good idea to run a check nationwide. That's why many landlords use a professional screening company. You can find such companies by conducting an internet search or by looking in the yellow pages of your phone book. You are not only looking for good and bad credit, you are also making sure the applicant told the truth on their application. Security deposits are covered under Kansas Statute 58-2550. Some landlords ask that an applicant pay a security deposit before the lease is signed. Caution tenants about paying a security deposit until they are absolutely sure they want the unit. A landlord may be able to keep some or all of the security deposit if the tenant changes his or her mind before signing the lease. For example, advertising costs to find new tenant or loss of 1 month's rent. However, if a new tenant moves in when the applicant was scheduled to move in, the landlord should prorate the rent and return the unused amount of the security deposit to the applicant. If the landlord is not out any money, he should return the full security deposit to the applicant. An applicant should be able to present one of the following pieces of identification: a current photo ID such as driver's license, military or state identification card, or passport. You can also ask for a work visa, alien registration receipt card, temporary resident card, or employment authorization card. It is important that identity is verified to protect against identity theft. A Social Security number can also be requested in order to conduct a credit report. Some state or federal funded housing programs do not require a Social Security number, but market rate landlords, or those landlords not mandated by a government subsidized program, may ask for a Social Security number. The following is an example of an occupancy guideline. In compliance with all applicable fair housing laws, we have established restrictions on the total number of persons that may occupy a given rental unit. Our guidelines allow 2 persons per bedroom, plus 1 additional person per rental unit. These guidelines are to prevent overcrowding and are in keeping with the limitations of the rental unit and its building systems. Occupancy will be limited to the persons indicated on the original rental application and those listed on the lease agreement, unless otherwise agreed in writing. Any proposed additional tenant must complete a rental application and be processed and approved through the same screening process prior to occupying the rental unit. Your policy can instead comply to any local city occupancy guidelines. For example, a particular number of people per square footage of habitable space. You should refer to the video entitled Fair Housing Screening to get more information regarding fair housing and how it applies to the total number of persons who may occupy a rental unit. It's a good idea to put an equal opportunity housing statement in your rental application. For example, we are an equal opportunity housing provider. It is our policy to rent our units in full compliance with Federal Fair Housing Act and all state and local fair housing laws. We do not discriminate against any person regardless of race, color, sex, heritage, religion, familial status, or disability. Information release. Include a broad information release on the application. Also, a statement summarizing that a landlord has a right to verify all information on the application by whatever legal means necessary. Example, you must authorize us to verify all information provided in your rental application, from credit sources, credit agencies, current and prior landlords and employers, and personal references, and allow us to run a criminal background check. It is important the applicant signs the application giving the authorization. If there is a second applicant, it is important that that person also signs their application giving the authorization. If there is more than one applicant, it is important they sign a joint and severally liable statement. For example, adult tenants are jointly and severally liable, which means that each one can be held responsible to all provisions of the lease agreement, to include the payments of all funds due, regardless of ability to pay. It's a good idea to include this statement on the application so tenants understand that each party is both jointly and also separately responsible for all conditions of the lease agreement. If rent isn't paid, the landlord can legally evict all parties, no matter which tenant caused the lease violation or non-payment of rent. Rejection of a rental application. Rejection of a housing applicant is justified if that applicant cannot meet the objective obligations that apply to all tenants. An objective reason to deny an applicant is something that is measurable and verifiable. Examples of reasons for denial include: do they have past evictions? Would a prior landlord rent to them again? Based on your criteria applied to everyone, can they afford the rent? A landlord should never use a subjective reason for denial, meaning a reason that can't be verified. Example, you have a bad feeling about the applicant because of his race. If the entire reason or part of the reason for applicant denial is because of a credit report, per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the landlord must inform the applicant and send a denial letter. Per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the denial letter must provide the applicant the following: the name, address, and phone number of the credit reporting agency that provided the information. In turn, the credit reporting agency must provide the tenant with a free copy of their credit report. In order to obtain the free report, the tenant must make the request within 30 days. For more information, see the Federal Trade Commission's website at www.ftc.gov/credit. Maintaining records. Paper trails are important for any business. A written record can offer protection for various issues that can arise, to include potential claims of fair housing discrimination. For this reason, it is a good business practice to retain all rental applications and information regarding applicants, such as credit or employment references, for at least 2 years. This definitely applies to applications which do not result in a signed lease agreement. Safeguard your applicant's identity. Information that you have collected should be stored in a locked file cabinet. When no longer needed, destroy and dispose of the information properly. Paper shredders are a very good investment. Need more information? Free answers are available by calling Housing and Credit Counseling at 800-234-0217 or 785-234-0217. You can also visit our website at www.hcci-ks.org.